Good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, sparks flying on Capitol Hill over the Russia probe. President Trump's acting attorney general grilled by Democrats and some Republicans on his role overseeing the Mueller investigation. And Matt Whitaker refused to defend the Mueller probe, refused to stand up to Trump's ongoing attacks on the probe.
Are you overseeing a witch hunt?
Congressman, as I've mentioned previously, the special counsel's investigation is an ongoing investigation, and so I think it would be inappropriate for me to...
But you wouldn't oversee a witch hunt, would you? You'd stop a witch hunt, wouldn't you?
Congressman, it would be inappropriate for me to talk about an ongoing investigation.
Except for no one was asking him for details about the investigation. They were just asking him a really basic and important question, frankly, given these attacks.
It's a witch hunt, and they know that.
This is a pure and simple witch hunt. It's a total witch hunt. I've been saying it for a long time.
There's about 50 more where those came from. To say it again, the acting attorney general, the person in charge of the Mueller investigation, refused to say it isn't a witch hunt today. And that is extreme because most respectable Republicans in Washington have taken a clear stand against Trump's witch hunt attacks.
I wouldn't use the term witch hunt.
I don't believe this is a witch hunt.
It's not a witch hunt.
Okay. Well, Whitaker wouldn't defend Mueller's investigation, wouldn't say it isn't a witch hunt, which is a problem on the face of it, and even more of a concern when you consider his public comments on the investigation made before he oversaw it.
Why don't these folks hurry up? I mean, it is not helping this administration.
An effort by Jim Comey to get this, put in place and have somebody that he's very familiar with and Bob Mueller conduct the investigation. So I don't, I think it smells a little fishy.
I still continue to wonder if there is any there. I have not seen a single fact.
Laura Jarrett is out front in Washington. And Laura, what else stood out to you in this hearing where Whitaker wouldn't say whether Mueller's probe was a witch hunt or not?
Really baffling there, Aaron. Whitaker also really doubled down on his refusal to step aside from the Mueller probe, saying notwithstanding all of his past criticisms that you just played, his criticisms of the Russia investigation, he's now been fully briefed on it, and he claims he hasn't really taken any action or interfered in any way with Mueller's work, yet he repeatedly dodged questions about his conversations with the president, except when he didn't, vowing that he never talked to President Trump about the special counsel's investigation, but admitted in the past he actually wanted a job defending Trump in the White House. He also didn't shy away from feeding into unfounded conspiracy theories about CNN's own reporting on Roger Stone, President Trump's longtime confidant, his arrest, saying it was deeply concerning to him. We were there to capture the arrest, even though we did it through some old-fashioned reporting. And when pressed about the other major investigation looming over this presidency, the one into the President Trump's own lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, Whitaker refused to shed any light on what the president may or may not have discussed on that front. Aaron.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. And I want to go now to a member of the House Judiciary Committee who was there today grilling the acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker, the Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. And I appreciate your time, Congresswoman Dean. What was your reaction when Whitaker refused to say the Mueller investigation is not a witch hunt?
Well, there were an awful lot of things that the acting attorney general refused to speak about and deflected and delayed and stalled. I was really baffled by all of that. I'm pleased that we had the opportunity to have the acting attorney general in front of us, but you saw in question after question the refusal to answer questions honestly and openly, the attempt to answer a question that was not asked. I tried to focus on the issue that you just mentioned, which was recusal, and we got very inconsistent answers.
Right, as to why he chose to remain, overseeing it when obviously there were ethical questions raised by the Ethics Committee. I mean, as Laura just was talking about, Congresswoman Whitaker contradicted himself. Talk about his conversations with the president, right? Sometimes he said, oh, they're privileged. I shouldn't have to answer questions about them. And other times talking about them.
And yet, the committee was very thoughtful in preparing for today, sent the acting attorney general a whole host of questions so that he would have the absolute opportunity to work with the administration to make sure that he was in the clear to answer questions. And he said today under oath he never bothered to share those questions. So he cannot assume a possible privilege. He never talked to the administration, according to his own testimony.
So do you think he was forthcoming with Congress today?
No, that was what was disappointing. He was not forthcoming. I focused in on the area of recusal. And so I asked him, I said, you actually had information from the ethics folks within the department to say you should recuse. And then he contrasted that with 4 folks, friends of his or teammates of his, who said, no, you'll be all right. And he said to us, I set the tone for this important department. It is in the honor of my lifetime. And when given the choice, when he's given ethics advice, recuse yourself because of the past statements you have made as a private citizen, he chose to set the tone of, I'll take the conflict of interest and move forward.
And you know, that was a strange moment. And I'm also curious what you make just about whether he really was forthright and honest in this, because one of the other exchanges, one of the most bizarre moments, frankly, I thought, Congresswoman Dean, was another one with you when you asked him, you know, how he got the job of his life, right? He said this is the great honor of his life. This is the most important, impressive job he's ever had. And you asked him, how did you find out about it? How did you find out you got the big job? Did the president call you, or did you find out another way? I want to play the exchange.
I can't remember if it was which preceded which, but I believe I received a phone call from the President of the United States asking me to be the acting Attorney General.
A moment ago, you said you learned by tweet. Did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay, so you learned first by a phone call from the president.
I believe so, but they were very close in time. And so I actually, as I sit here right now, I can't remember which preceded which.
So this is the job of your life. You can't remember whether the president is the one who called you and told you you got it? That's strange.
I have to tell you, Aaron, I have recently earned the job of a lifetime. I remember exactly how it took place. So it just stretches credulity that either he was hired by tweet, notified by tweet, or he actually got a phone call from the president. I would remember a phone call from the president hiring me for a job. So that made no sense. There was another area I had hoped to investigate, if you don't mind, and I had a chance to speak to the acting Attorney General after our conversation, after the time within the hearing. Would it be all right if I talk about that?
Yes, of course.
The other area, and some of my colleagues very ably talked about the very pressing issue of the child separation policy. They call it zero tolerance. As one of my colleagues calls it, zero humanity. I had the opportunity after the hearing to just walk back into the back offices of the Judiciary Committee and met with, just spoke briefly with one of his counsel, but also then introduced myself. I wanted to introduce myself to the acting Attorney General to show that respect. And I talked to him and I said, you know what? It is your predecessor who put in place the separation of families at the border. You have 5 or 6 days. You've said it over and over again. You have 5 or 6 days to go. Why not make your legacy ending this inhumane policy?
What did he say?
He thought that was interesting.
Well, we'll see what he does. One question before we go, I want to ask you, just to be clear here, because he has been overseeing the Mueller investigation, he has all the facts, he knows everything he wants to know about it. Do you think the acting Attorney General has interfered in the Mueller investigation at all, Congresswoman Dean?
I absolutely have no idea. What I find puzzling is the lack of forthrightness. That he was briefed on it. He had no clarity as to whether the information that he learned and another one of his deputies sitting in on that briefing was ever conveyed to the White House. That was so unclear. So I have no idea. That's why we're asking these questions.
Right. Of course, that's exactly what we would have hoped to get the idea from in a hearing like this, but some really puzzling moments. Thank you so very much, Congresswoman Dean. Appreciate
Thank you,
your time.
Aaron, for having me.
And next.